aviation sector, which, as of this moment, is soaring, not in excellence or in innovation, but in fares that are now astronomically out of reach for most Nigerians. So beginning November 1st, LPs will be charging a staggering 400,000 naira for a one-way business class ticket and 300,000 naira for economy on domestic flights. That's right, 800,000 naira for a round-trip business class ticket and 600,000 naira for economy. And that's just to fly within Nigeria, by the way. At this rate, flying is set to become a privilege exclusive to the elite, while the rest of us are left to contend with decaying roadways and heightened risks just traveling by road. Have you been kidnapped? May it not be our portion. So, why are we here? Airlines argue that rising operating costs and economic headwinds leave them no choice but to increase fares. They point to the high cost of aviation fuel, the scarcity of spare parts, and also a struggling currency. Have you seen the FX? As reasons for this hike. But is it any wonder? With so few functional aircraft and an outdated fleet, carriers are forced to contend with one operational crisis after another. It's no longer surprising that the shortage of available seats on flights from Lagos to Abuja has made securing a ticket an Olympic sport. These sky-high prices aren't just numbers. They represent the desperation of Nigerian travelers who must now weigh their safety against their finances. For countless middle-class citizens, flying was a means of safe and quick transportation. But as flights go out of reach, they face two grim options: stay grounded and lose precious hours in productivity, or brave the treacherous highways riddled with insecurity, tanker drivers, heavy truck. The list is endless. And who stands to gain from this? The road kidnappers. Ooh, they are having a jolly time. Because who will now see an influx of potential targets as people, as kidnappees, is that a word? Forced by circumstances, they abandon the skies and go for road. Where one might ask, is the leadership on this issue? What is the Minister of Aviation doing as our air transport infrastructure crumbles and fares skyrocket? Nigerians want to know, what plans do you have, sir? Good morning, sir. If any are in place to protect the interests of travelers, air workers, and the aviation industry itself. And sir, your silence is deafening. Yes, sir. Good morning, sir. And also, the inaction is not only troubling, but dangerous as well. The current administration promised an ambitious reform agenda, renewed hope. But where are the results? Nigeria's aviation sector is more fragile than ever. So fragile that despite the enormous potential to grow it into a regional hub, Afrobeats, we're still here. Where are the investment strategies? What will happen to tourism, local tourism? Where is the commitment to address infrastructure deficits or to promote partnerships that would keep operational costs manageable? Have we forgotten that affordable and reliable air travel is not just a luxury, but a necessity in a vast nation like ours? I mean, have you seen the landmass of Niger State? That place is huge. Now, to the Minister of Aviation, again, good morning, sir. It's time to step up, okay? I'm sorry, sir. Sorry, sir. Yes, sir. Please step up, sir. Address this crisis head on. Look into subsidies for critical components like aviation fuel. Incentivize the local production of aircraft parts. Push for long-term solutions that attract investment into the sector. Because if we continue on this trajectory, our aviation industry, already on its knees, might as well just be buried, or better yet, grounded for good. And we can't wait any longer. Nigerians are tired. They demand answers. We want answers. We need leadership that will fight to ensure that air travel remains accessible, safe, and sustainable. This, Mr. Minister, well done, sir, is a wake-up call, sir. I know, anytime we wake up is our morning. Please wake up now, it's Sunday, thank you. And act now, or we'll be left watching our skies. Hallelujah. Sorry. Our skies have become the domain of the few, while the rest of us are left quite literally stranded on the roads. Again, good morning, sir. And good morning to you as well, and welcome to Breakfast Extra. As always, we're going to get started on quite 3 hours of the very best way to start off your week on a Sunday morning. And I'm not alone. Now, this time, I expect you to expect a familiar face. His face is familiar, but not on this side of the neighborhood. It's the sheriff in town, the new sheriff in town, Joe Hansen, ladies and gentlemen.
That was a way to go.
I put on my best show for you, Joe.
Yes, I mean, that was awesome. Well done, well done.
Thank you, sir.
It was much more like I was watching the opera. I was just waiting for you to hit the high notes, like, la, 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 la,
thank you, sir.
You know, I could imagine what the minister will be doing now. He would probably drop his cup of coffee this morning and make a few phone calls. By the way, Pelubi Nubi would have new friends who would decide to ride from London to Lagos on Okada, you know. And Kunle Adeyonju will also have more friends who would ride on a horse. I won't be shocked if I see horses in Lagos. By the way, Judith, I think we should start saving up to get a horse.
No, so we're saving. And we'll turn to Ajala the Travelers. And most likely hitchhiking as well. When we get to Ogun State, we'll wait for a truck and join the truck. We'll go to...
On that hitchhiking, be careful. Because you don't know who's going to pick you up. Trust me.
But hey, everyone, welcome to the program. And please, let's get started for a wonderful show. I have my co-host today, Joe Hansen, to make the show quite sublime just for you. Welcome aboard to Breakfast Extra.
All right, so we say good morning and welcome to this Sunday's edition of Breakfast Extra, the perfect morning dose of everything that matters. I mean, we have a lineup that keep you informed, inspired, and ready to take on the week ahead. Now, first up, we're diving into one of the hottest issues of the day, the latest price hike in Nigeria's aviation sector. I mean, you just saw Judith tell you in bits and, of course, in pieces, letting you know what the challenges are. And with one-way domestic flights reaching up to 400,000 naira, air travel is slipping out of reach for many Nigerians. Maybe we'll do Okada. Just saying. Well, we'll take a hard look at what's driving these prices and call on the Minister of Aviation to step up and find solutions for extra special. We're tackling Africa's dependency on foreign vaccines and the urgent need to boost local production. With experts joining us as well, we'll discuss what it will take for Africa to achieve self-reliance in vaccine production and safeguard the health of its people. And to round things off on Focus Africa, we're zooming in on Mozambique post-elections as protests broke out in major cities following the announcement of election results as well. Now, it's all coming up right here, so do me a favor. Grab your coffee or a cup of coffee or a jog if you need and settle in as we bring you the latest on the stories shaping our world. But first, let's bring you the dailies for this morning on a Sunday.
Ah, yes, indeed. And we're going to get started with our very first daily for today as we pull it up on our screen there. The very first one that we have is our Punch newspaper. Fuel consumption, 10,000 marketers may short down over massive drop, high cost. You can find that story there on the on page 3. Many petrol stations cannot buy one truckload, and that's from Newpeg. That story there is on the Sunday Punch. Bobrisky to face fresh criminal charges as panel indicts 4 prison officers. That story is on page 3. 12 governors pardon 1,780 inmates to decongest prisons. That story is on page 4. Sack more ministers, Ndume tells Tinubu. That story is on page 6. I almost said Mazzino. Joe, I fear that Ali Ndume might be the only person who seems to be very bold enough to call out the president from inside of the APC. Well, moving on away from that, many fear dead in Abuja building collapse again, and that story is on page 5. Ogun assures residents as memo hits of terror attack. That story is on page 3. Nigeria is excited after Libya forfeits 3 points, fined $50,000, and that story is on page 13. Why I attempted suicide 3 times, retired African church canon. That story is on page 8. I want to play non-romantic roles. That's from Saga there. That story is on page 12. Then find it. Page 7, our final headline here on the Sunday Punch is hardship. 50% of private hospitals have closed down, says Doctors Guild's president. You can find all these headlines and more on the Punch newspaper.
Very, very sad one, especially the doctor's story. But let's move on straight to the Sunday Vanguard, and let's bring you what it says. Japa sweeps Nigeria's hospitals. There you go. You can see the picture, a clear graphic description. On the boxes there, you've got a picture that says Dr. Musa is out, Dr. Basi, Dr. Shegun. Where they're going to? They're out. They're leaving the country because one reason is simply that the economy is not befitting, is not helping them to maintain their status as doctors. Poor remuneration as well. Anyway, Illuminu co-chairs New Africa Summit at Saudi Arabia Investment Initiative. That's on page 77. You can find that story for business lovers. 80-year-old woman killed in Abeokuta fire. Sad.
Very sad news there.
Inflation. Why we are careful about lowering rates, Cardoso says. So he's careful. You might want to read why he's careful. CAF awards 3 points, 3 goals to Nigeria. This story came yesterday, broke yesterday, towards the afternoon time, and it was much more like a success for Nigerians because it was a payback that seemingly was to be done to Nigerians. I'm talking about the Libyans.
Yeah, Joe, I love the jokes as well that came from it. It says, oh, it was a nice, strong line. The boys played very tough. I mean, it was so funny. William Tristan, the other end, and he scored in the 31 seconds. Like, and I'm like, this match didn't happen, right? If you read it, and you don't know what's going on. You think that, the match
was
that was a real match, and then we got those points. But it was, Nigerians are just trolls, and I love us for it. I really do.
It leaves social media for Nigerians. Trust me. The only thing people say is it seems much more like we're keypad warriors than we're actual warriors in time.
That is
But then again, Wike versus Atiku continues to boil hot. This time, fresh moves to sack Damagon begins. They're looking forward to let Damagon go. But don't forget, this was the reason why there was a break in between the NEC, that's the National Executive Committee meeting, sometime last week, and then they said they've sorted it out. But now it's a fresh one again. Release Nnamdi Kanu now. It will press Tinubu at Iwanyawu's funeral. That's on page 5. 40 fear trapped in Abuja building collapse. Another sad story there, building collapses. No casualty as fire guts Lagos Blue Rail line. That's another story as well that you can take a look at when you pick up the Sunday Vanguard. I will switch gears now away from that one to the next, and this time we just finished from Sunday Vanguard, guys. And we're moving to our next this time. There we go. Now it's The Nation. For The Nation, plot to draft David Mark for PDP chairman fails. Count me out of party internal crisis, says Atiku. Inciting military intervention, unacceptable. Presidency warns The Guardian. The presidency warns The Guardian, and that's the stories on page 5. Search for victims of helicopter crash ongoing, says NSIB. Agency secures diving perimeter for wreckage
Location explains why ill-fitted helicopter went down. You can find that story on page 6. Edu, Tinubu's economic reforms yielding positive fruits. That story is on page 4 and 5. 40 persons trapped as building collapses in Abuja. That story is on page 2. At the top there, AFCON qualifier. CAF awards Nigeria 3 points, imposes $50,000 a fine on Libya. North Africans to appeal. That story is on page 39. Commonwealth leaders defy UK, agree to discuss reparations. Tinubu congratulates Ghana's new Secretary General of Organization. That story is on page 2. And that's pretty much all of it here for the nation for a Sunday.
Very interesting stories there, most importantly. Anyway, let's take the Sunday Times. Yes, the Sunday Times is another paper that we're going to look through very quickly. It says, blackout in northern Nigeria, bandits hindering speedy repair of vandalized facilities. Northern Senators Forum weighs in. You would recall sometime last week, bandits did do it again. Yes, they did it again. They attacked the electrical facilities. They were going after the power cables. Power line was especially bombing them, expecting to get power. After doing that, no, absolutely not. So that's been a big situation there in the north. Let's take a look at the picture you see on the front page there as well. That's got to do with a bridge, quite tiny for my eyes to see. So I just might leave that for you when you pick up the Sunday Times to get the description of that picture there. Ice block business in Nigeria, steps, cost, and profits. I think the Sunday Times is trying to teach you how to go into an ice block business, especially now that those who are in band A and B are looking to have about 22 to 24 hours of electricity. Ice block business would be the way to go, all right? Federal government approves Creative Economy Development Fund, Intellectual Property Monetization Pilot, and that's one story that those in the creative space will be excited to hear. Hopefully this time they can lay hold on the money and the cash, but we do hear that you have to go through some strenuous processes. In the past, whenever the government was mentioning that it was going to give money to the creative economy, I'll talk about the time of Goodluck, Ebele, Jonathan, and so on. But then again, local vigilantes provide security as police shuns Kano LG pole. Yesterday, we did see thugs who decided to crash gate one of the units and destroy it and say there would be no elections. But then again, these are the results. NNPP wins all. All 44 local councils. Okay, it's starting to look like this is the new political landscape where a political party that holds sway in a state will therefore be in charge of that state regardless of whoever asks God or whatever. Anyway, that's it. Local vigilantes provide security, but then again, NNPP wins all 44, all, including the one we saw in the video that it did all 44 local councils were the winners. Nothing can happen, and that's it.
Oh, goodness me.
That's all. That's all I'm going to take on the Sunday Times.
That's all from the Sunday Times. We'll switch gears away from Sunday Times and this time to This Day newspaper. At the very top there, you're going to see the very first one there at 696.88 billion naira. Foreign investors transactions in Nigerian stock market highest since 2018. I have a number of questions, but I'm just going to keep it moving. At the bottom there, Ekong excited as CAF awards Nigeria 3 points, fines Libya $50,000. That story is on page 38. And insecurity in Northwest now. Tinubu charges military. Defense Minister tours theaters of operations. That story is on page 5. Cardoso, CBN confident of attracting $12 billion diaspora inflows in 365 days. Says Apex Bank working assiduously to get Nigeria out of grey list. Tinubu's bold reforms yielding results. Edu insist. You can find that story on page 5. NNPP, that's the New Nigeria People's Party, wins all 44 local government chairmanship positions. 484 councilorships sits in Kano. And that story is on page 5. Well, I know one thing for certain. They will be jubilating and celebrating the entirety of this Sunday, except somebody takes them to court and sues them or takes it to the electoral. Anyway, keep moving.
Anyway, let's go to our very last paper, Voice of Liberty. That's what we're going to on a Sunday. Voice of Liberty, the front page there says, restore power in Kano, Kaduna, Jigawa, others northern senators tell federal government. But the question is, how now? Sure, you are trying to restore it, and then you have the bandits who are destroying it. So what do you do? Anyway, that will be a conversation between the northern senators and the federal government. But that's one of the key challenges, by the way. It doesn't mean nothing can be done. We believe some things can be done. No trace of missing persons, aircraft, 48 hours after Rivers helicopter crash. This is sad.
So sad.
It's been 48 hours, no trace at all.
Huh.
Presidency dismisses call for military takeover, says Tinubu not weak. There seems to be an article on one of the major front pages, and it seems the presidency is not buying that article statement as well. But that's what we're going to take. We'll take one final one. Sack more underperforming ministers. Convene economic summit. Ndume urges Tinubu. Ndume is speaking out loud.
Ali Ndume is just one of the chieftains. I think he's of the APC, isn't he?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, and you know, out of all of the chieftains who are very much in support of Tinubu, he's only been the one who's very vocal when it comes to critique. He critiques him with no holds bars. You know, even on the floor of the house, he just says it as is, and he really doesn't. He doesn't mind. Well, that's pretty much all of the papers that we can take for today. That's it on the dailies for this morning right here on Breakfast Extra. But stick around, because coming up this hour is our big report, and there's so much happening inside of Kogi, from healthcare to also the flooding from the torrential rains that we experienced in the state. We're going to bring you these and more after the break. Welcome once again.
All right, welcome back to Breakfast Extra. It's time for us to take a look at the strips, to take a look at our current realities painted in pictures, and most importantly, depicted for your clear understanding. But you need a mindset of your own to be able to decipher what the pictures are indeed saying. But not just pictures, I'm talking about cartoon characters that have been painted by these respected journalists and professionals. We're taking a look at 3 of them. And out of these 3, I'll get to find out what you can make out of them. I'll try my best to put you through, but most importantly, I'm sure Judith will equally do a clear support on what these pictures or these depictions actually entail. So you ready? Let's take a look at the strips right away. Let's start off with the very first one. This very first one is what you see here on the screen. It's from Business Day. First off, can you depict the characters? Well, you might want to start with this gentleman right here. Does he make sense of who he is? Well, when you think about P, you think about power, you think about electricity. Yeah, that's right, that's him. Well, take a look at what it says. He says, we need to invest more. That's what he's saying. But look at the response, especially from a worker there, or one who happens to manage the power line. He says, but sir, even with all the money they invested in him, why does he keep collapsing? This has to do with the power grid, right? We've seen so many collapses. In short, last week we had a total of about 3. And if you do the entire calculation in the space of just 1 year since the current administration got into power, it's been quite chaotic. But we must not lie. Power has actually improved, but to many, it's to the detriment of their pockets. What do you think? Well, this is very clear. Sorry to the National Grid. He's indeed going through a lot. Well, this is one picture. I'm going to bring Judith in for the second one. So let's take a look at the second one very quickly, and then we'll analyze what it says. Oh, there you go. And that's the second one there. Now, this one is from Business Day. You can see a cooking pot. Very, very fresh, right? Yeah. And what's written on the cooking pot? It says ministries, departments, and agencies. That's the MDAs. And what are they cooking? Well, it looks like they're cooking, take a look closely. Did you see that? All right. Well, let me explain to you very quickly. Under the pot, you do have a few Nigerians who are giving their all to ensure that they can indeed hold on to the ministries and agencies so that they can keep stable, especially on the cooking pot. But it's very, very tough. And on the table there, you have, of course, those who are in charge. But this is what it says. It says, "Sirs, I have stoked up the fire. Your usual will soon be ready." What is the usual? Well, of course, it's the revenue. Aha. Revenue that goes to the MDAs. And who are the beneficiaries of these revenues? Well, you see them sitting there at the table. Well, Judith, let me bring you in on this one very quickly. Most times we do hear that the FAC allocation is ready. We do hear that the states are going to receive their share, just like they did a few weeks ago with River State taking a whooping one. But not just that, never have Nigerians heard that the MDAs had to chop or cut or break down their costs because Nigerians are suffering. I don't know what your take is about this, but take a look at those under there who are struggling to make sure that the pot is stable so they can collect their regular allocations.
Honestly, Joe, I'll say this, and I've said this so many times, and the persons who come up with this cartoons and this animations, they are very, very, very in line and in tune with what Nigerians are going through, and they put it so creatively well. I'd never think about this way. I mean, who would think about this? But just the mind of being able to capture that in picture, and it really shows how dire the common man or the average man, the Nigerian man, the situation is. You know, just look at that. Look at them. Just different colors, different, shapes, and they all look emaciated. You know what I mean? Like they are hungry.
They're struggling.
Just struggling, literally, and on their last breath and trying to hold on tight and still produce revenue, cook that revenue from the MDAs. This is what it is. And just staring at that is just a stark reminder of the realities of the everyday Nigerian.
Absolutely. There's one person in the picture that kind of like amazes me. This guy right here, he's not using his hands to hold on to the pot. He's using his legs to actually take it off.
He's propelling the thing up.
He's just trying everything to ensure that the guys at the seat are actually indeed satisfied. And that's pretty sad, I must tell you. Very, very
So
sad. Indeed. But let's leave this one. Let's go to the very last, the third one. And this one will indeed amaze you as well. It's coming from Guardian. And let's take a look at what it says. Say cheese, all right? That's what it says. Say cheese. And then it's all about the 70,000 minimum wage. And that's the government. The person with the heavy bag, you can see the government is taking the whole chunk, the big one. You see it? And then they're giving the meager. The bigger sum, the small one, to, of course, who else? The civil servants, Nigerians, and saying 70,000 minimum wage. And he says, come on, smile, say cheese. And this is the response. I hear that the money he spends on catfish pepper soup daily is more than his amount. This amount, I beg your pardon, 70,000. After we finish saying cheese, let's all say peanuts. Do you think 70,000 naira is enough currently? Do you think so, Chidi?
Is 500,000 naira enough? No, I mean, so 70,000 naira, if you think about the price of energy, whether it's gas, whether it's fuel, whether it's electricity, the tariffs that we pay, it's not enough. And the fact that they based this amount for an average family of 5, a father, a mother, and 3 children, with the cost of bread alone, the cost of gari, of rice, and school fees.
And everything is shot up high, in case you do not know. So this pictorial explanation is just clear that Nigerians are still waiting on the federal government to make an announcement that it has reduced the salaries of all senators, you could say, from the National Assembly and the likes. But this is not happening. So, I mean, these are all the pictures that we've seen, especially from today's strip. And I guess that's exactly what Nigerians are indeed going to think about, mull over, especially after today's strips. But that's all on the strips for today. Let's quickly get you ready for our big story as we start off in the next hour. But first, after this break.
And it's time for us to get into our big report for this morning. It's where we tackle some of the pressing issues affecting communities across Nigeria. And today we turn our attention to Kogi State, where the Nigerian Medical Association has raised serious allegations against the federal teaching hospital in Lokoja. Now, the association accuses the medical director of violating workers' rights and engaging in unfair labor practices, painting a troubling picture of worsening conditions for healthcare professionals and patients alike. Now, reports indicate a decline in the hospital's structural standards and service quality, sparking significant concern among residents and staff. Our correspondent Joshua Marai has been investigating these claims. And now let's turn to Joshua and as he brings us more on this unfolding story. Take a look at his report.
Michael Adejo, not his real name, is a resident of Lokoja, the Kogi State capital. Adejo is among many who have been affected by the crisis at the Federal Teaching Hospital in Lokoja between the hospital management and some staff of the hospital. With a heavy heart, he continues to mourn the recent loss of his mother, who lost her life due to negligence at the hospital facility as she was unable to receive adequate care before her unfortunate demise.
My mom just passed on of recent for the hospital. The day we carry and come, we do emergency. Proper, as in, we cause serious noise or emergency there. Imagine my mom don't carry my mom come there around as early as to 7 in the morning. Before the trained doctor will come attend to her now, almost around after 5. Many patients they die. Nobody see natural sickness. Now just because of attention, you know, make many patients they die.
The talk says sometimes they know they get light. See,
yes,
for darkness could just be.
Yes, they know they get light. Mainly now the emergency and the emergency they run now.
Some other patients say a hospital should be a place of healing and care. For Jemilu Abdullahi, the teaching hospital has become a place of shock and delusionment.
Well, from outside now we see the structure of the place fine. You mean say the inside not fine?
At all. If you go to the bedroom, you like, is human using this very bedroom or animal? Like you ask this question, now human being they use this bedroom, I've been an animal they use. One thing I just discovered is they just paint the outside, do little innovation. So if you are passing, you see that this place is okay, but go inside and see it yourself.
Another resident, Ezekiel Jonathan, a middle-aged man, also resident in Lokoja, says that he received a prescription from the same hospital, hoping to finally get drugs for his father. However, what should have been a straightforward visit to the hospital NHIS pharmacy turned out to be a frustrating ordeal for the 4th time in recent months.
If you look at everything here, it's complete politics going on here. Just now they prescribe drugs. I went to the NHIS pharmacy. Those drugs are not there. I had to come outside of the hospital to get these drugs. And this is not the first time. I think this is the 4th time now this is happening. There's nothing working here. Go through the wards everywhere. I don't have much to say, but if there is a way things can change here, which I don't think is possible.
Several attempts have been made to reach the management of the Federal Teaching Hospital in Lokoja. The hospital public relations officer declined to comment on the matter, but instead directed News Central to consult with the Kogi State chapter of the Nigerian Union of Journalists. In Lokoja for News Central, I am Joshua Imarai.
Joshua, many thanks. Joshua Marai, they are correspondent from Kogi. There, many thanks for a very insightful report. Now, we'll try to get Joshua Marai join us to discuss, this very deep-seated issues that need urgent attention at the Federal Hospital, Teaching Hospital in Lokoja. But for now, we are unable to establish a connection with him. He seems to be having issues with connecting with us. But let's talk about infrastructural decay when it comes to our healthcare sector.
It's a problem, Judith. And in order not to mince words, we've always said, I've been a strong supporter of one thing. And I'm going to say it here because that's the only situation that would turn things around in places like Lokoja and other areas where we have teaching hospitals that are lying in a state of comatose completely. It's simple. There should be a law. I mean, we saw in the House where laws were being passed recently, a law was being pushed that they should consider Sharia, not just to be in a certain part of Nigeria, but the entire country. And it should now be focused on personal relationships, issues, and so on. Sharia should apply. Why are we wasting time? Why not focus on the ones that would save the people, such as this? So I'm thinking, instead of pushing such laws, why don't you push laws such as a law that Nigerians or those in the House should accept?
Right.
A law such as no serving minister,
Right.
senator,
Right.
name it,
Right.
should fly abroad for treatment.
Absolutely. I
You'd be
1,000%.
shocked. The moment that
1,000%.
happens, I mean, there could be some form of liberty here or there, especially when you don't have the experts on ground. Fly them in. Let them come in.
Right.
Instead of going to see the doctors, fly them in.
Have exchange
But
programs.
Because, as sad as it is, even the number one citizen, we've seen them in the past 8 to, counting years,
Yeah.
where a little ill health, they're traveling out, they're
Yes.
going to receive medical treatment. Why would you care about those at home? It's the same thing with the educational sector. But now in the medical sector, if the doctors push for this law, say, listen, going forward, nobody should travel out. If you're sick, you would see how a sitting senator would go to the hospital.
Right.
One senator did, a minister did go to the hospital,
Right.
and he was treated poorly. He was told to sit down. He was told because he didn't pay 60,000 naira. And he said, I have the 60,000 naira to pay. They told him, sit down there. There was no light. And he lamented, he cried. I'm talking about the former Minister of Sports,
Right.
who actually had joined us on breakfast
Yes.
on Friday. Now, he saw it firsthand. And guess what? Currently, he's saying that he's now a rebel force against the government, even the government that he was part of. My point simply is, just to cut the matter short, is let's enact a law where, whether you're a serving minister, whoever you are, you must not travel outside the country. You must receive your medical treatment here. Then you would see that the ministers, the senators, even the president will be forced to fix the medical healthcare situation. They'll say, okay, fix here. But you know that, come on, if I have a slight headache, private jet, fly me out, it will continue. It will not stop.
And honestly, I've talked about this a gazillion times, a bajillion times, and I think I'll keep, and I'm so glad that you're bringing this up about the executive and where their priorities lie when it comes to the people and serving the people. I remember very clearly about weeks back, it's still very much a recent memory of how they were so quick to invite very dark man, no offense to the man, okay? And Bobrisky, as well as the other head chiefs, the chiefs of EFCC and the prison service, to come and settle quarrel. Okay, Mbo, you said this. You said, who said it? And
they were laughing.
And they were laughing. And it seemed like a scene from a skit. But instead, and at that time, there was a flooding that had ravaged, at best, 50% of the city of Maiduguri, Borno State. Nobody had been called to, no one asked anyone, hey, who is to blame? What happened here? What is happening? Who are the first responders? What do you need? How can we make sure that this does not happen again? Nobody was summoned. Nobody at all.
That's it.
And then to put that, that's just one of the many things that was happening at the time. We saw within weeks a fuel hike went on as well. There was so much happening in that period, and not once the legislators thought to set up a committee or call them to the House to answer a query. None. But they were more concerned. And I think it's all about priorities.
That's
again,
right.
and so when the executive says, in this case the presidency, is saying, oh, we're going to cut costs, we're reducing our cabinet. Boy, your cabinet is the largest we've seen since this administration, since the democratic rule from 1999. We've seen this. Yours being the highest, and then you're saying, oh, I'm going to cut costs. You're going to cut costs how? You're reducing their trips, you're reducing their convoys. How is that cutting costs when you are adding on that? So again, when the executive, as his body language, have shown that, you know, it's not about you. It's about loyalty. Who's loyal to me and who I'm going to reward. And also, what else is not the legislative? You know, so when you say that, I'm so glad you're towing that same line. And it takes us back into,
it's a fact.
Yeah, and it takes us back to our priorities as well. The everyday common man, the federal, and Joe.
Let me shock you.
The federal teaching, hang on. The teaching hospital is at the top. The primary health care is still at the bottom. Right? So if the teaching hospital is that decayed,
then you can imagine what happens to
the
the primary as well. So it's a conversation that if we're going to start here, we would not finish. But I can gladly say that it's the same issue the educational system is having. And many have asked, just to wrap things up, that how come certain few ministers were let go and the one who actually is in charge of the health, I mean, many have said they didn't feel really bad if the educational minister was let go because he was more concerned about the age of a child before getting into school rather than concerned about how do we fix the decaying educational system. So basically, you've hit the nail on the head, and that's exactly what we've said. It's priorities. We're putting the most important thing, which has to do with lives. I mean, look at Lokoja, look at the report. It's just obvious, and that's just one state. Have you been to other states to see what's going on in there? There's no healthcare. There's nothing. I kid you not. And if anyone falls ill now,
same train of thought, same line of thought. I was about to say that we always say this. The average Nigerian is one sickness away from poverty.
Oh yeah.
Well, we're still in Kogi State. I will turn our attention now to a severe flooding that has upended the lives of residents and damaging not just properties as well, but also farmlands, and also displacing families and creating a sharp rise in food prices. Now, the floods have already affected 9 local government areas, throwing entire communities underwater and forcing thousands into temporary shelters. Now, our correspondent as well, Joshua Marai, visited some of the most affected communities to capture the experiences of both the residents and local farmers whose livelihoods are in jeopardy. He also documented the recent visit of the governor as well. We're going to roll that clip. Take a look.
In the wake of severe flooding that has swept through parts of Kogi State, local farmers have been left reeling from the devastation on their farmlands, which have been submerged by rising water levels. The situation has been particularly dire for rice farmers in the Bangede area of the state, as they have seen their crops, livelihoods, and months of hard work affected.
My own personal loss is up to 3 million because I don't harvest anyone. Because from that, after planting, weeding, fertilizer, other things, so no one have a harvest on it. Flood just come and erase it up.
Waiting water does no be small thing. As we did now, waiting with the chef, now only God now they help us where they take manage they eat, if not, no be small thing. The cost of rice now, at least where you go feel get like 20 bag, 40, 30 bag. If you don't go no say it's over 1 point, you don't go with that. So no be small thing.
The recent floods in the Kogi State has not only devastated farmlands, but has also led to a significant increase in food prices at the popular Akpata market. Local food vendors say they are struggling to cope with the sudden spike in food prices as supplies of locally grown produce have been disrupted by the floods.
That corner come on 4 market wire pass. It is around 42, 43 a month now. You don't have 53. Rice month now, 3 market wire pass. You know cost now, you don't about to 150,000 now. Every night minute now, you don't before minute now, new one come now, you don't 100,000 now. Minute why say goodbye.
The ripple effects of the flood have been evident on local economy, affecting not just farmers but also traders and residents who rely on locally sourced food. Many of those affected have called on government to rise up to their responsibilities and reach out to those in need of aid. In Lokoja for News Central, I am Joshua Imarai.
Seeing those waters there and just hearing the farmers and sharing their experience, it's heart-wrenching. Many thanks to Joshua Marai, who still yet can't join us. But these are powerful images, and just watching them and also hearing the stories as well when it comes to farmland and, food production. And Joe, I must say, with the price of food hiked and the Yuletide fast approaching,
of course, you know what's going to happen. It's basically like the biblical or the biblical farming that's about to take place. And you know, what we see that seems to be like a joke is actually going to come very hard. Coincidentally, the president has been able to put in place funding. You hear the presidency say, okay, they have XYZ amount of funding. They want to use it to help XYZ persons. They're giving out 600, recent one was about 600 million naira to be shared to youths. Then again, can you see that everything is rotating around priorities? If there's no food, it simply means that people will starve. When people starve, what else are you expecting? There's going to be pandemonium, there's going to be crisis, because people will start looking for means to survive. And when they cannot survive, they will do the best that they can. They would implode. They will start eating on each other. The eating doesn't really mean physical eating.
Yeah.
It simply means they will do whatever it is. If they have to steal, they will steal. If they have to break in, they would break in and do all they can.
Right.
It's exactly what we've seen happen in the past.
Right.
So now we have this flooding crisis. Granted, we can't blame the presidency for everything, but we can as well call out those who had been alerted months back that
Again
look out.
and again
It's the same thing
and
they've told
again.
Lagos States, that we should get ready, that there's going to be flooding. But the only thing I'm worried about, they said all Lagosians should move to highland. Please, where's
the island? Is that Jogunle? I'm sorry.
Big challenge.
I'm sorry.
Big problem.
And you know, when we're talking about, you know, food security, the farmers have been dealt a huge blow, right, post-pandemic, right, because insecurity soared after. And we've seen that farmers are finding it difficult to go to their farms. People will go to their farms and turn up dead, you know. And then now, there's now the flooding incident that we're seeing, you know, in these farmlands. And there's people that have to now, whether it's the rice farms or the yam, these are cash crop, you know, food crop. And not just for the nation, but also for their families as well. And so it also back to, even though we cannot blame the presidency for, or the executive or the legislative or even the governors for an act of God, we can also hold them accountable when it comes to policies that can help farmers that are critical and crucial for a time as these, to be able to introduce policies that are very important. For example, if it's insurance, you know, if it's support, and I know they would say there's loans. How many persons can take loans and pay back?
You see, in the last event we attended the Nigerian Economic Summit. There was a session that spoke deeply on this.
Yeah.
Food security.
Nice.
Also talked about the farmers, and then you had all those who were in this sector. They did come together. Part of the things that was highlighted was the fact that, of course, if the farmers are not secured, there is no way you would expect production of food. However, with a natural disaster like this, it's going to be met, whether we like it or not, annually. It's normal. It happens when the dams are opened, when we know that there's natural disaster occurrences. So we wouldn't say we are new. We do not know that these things will occur. However, what are the plans that are put in place? When the administration started, I do recall one thing that was mentioned, that they were going to provide a hectare of land in each geopolitical zones. You can quote me and check it, it's there. That when they do that, it will enable farmers to be able to farm regardless and create food storages. Where is it?
Do we even have the infrastructure for it to freeze them?
It's there.
To take fresh products from farm to table?
It's there. So I think there needs to be, the word is intentional. There seems to be no intentions. It's just mere mentions, just talk. There needs to be intentional acts that drive these conversations and say, listen, this is what we're doing. I mean, I must applaud the fact that these things are even mentioned.
Right, right.
Yeah, you can applaud the fact that, oh, it seems to have an idea.
Yeah.
Oh, this is the idea.
Isn't it just sound bites, isn't it? You know, Joe, they're just sound bites at the end of the day.
That's it.
Right.
It's sad. But kudos to the governor,
yes.
Who did step up, you know, walked up to the IDP camp.
Yeah, the
met
Governor
with the
Ododo.
people, yes.
Yes.
Spoke with them, gave them assurances, and, and so on. But we hope it's also not soundbite.
That's it.
That's another thing.
That's it.
Because we're seeing more activities than action.
Right.
Okay. So
I mean, and that's what
it's
really,
sad.
yeah, and that's what Nigerians want. At the end of the day, we want action. We're tired of the sound bites. We're tired of the words. We're tired of the constant promises. No more promises. Start doing the work. Whether it's the governors, the local government chairmen, the councillors, or the executive or legislative. The reason why you're in power is for the people. Can you actually work for the people instead of working for your stomach? But anyway, again, many thanks to Joshua Marayi for that very in-depth report on both very critical and important story as it shapes the indigent and lives of those in Kogi State. Our heart goes out to those who lost their property during the flooding, and we do hope that they're able to rebuild and recover in due course. Now, also, Joshua tried to make connection with us several times, but unfortunately was unable to. At the first instant, he said he was chased away, and I'm going to quote him. He said he was chased away by indigents of where he was at. His residents there chased him away. Now, this is our call to Nigerians and to the everyday Nigerians. We have to do our job. Every single time people go on social media and they call out journalists, they call out television, they call out media. But when we come out to do the job, it is impossible for us to do our job because you do not let us do the job. Whether it's out of fear, we don't know what it is, but we can only go as far. We can only come halfway, 50%. You have to meet us halfway. With that being said, many thanks for joining us on Big Report. Again, many thanks to Joshua. Stick around. Coming up at the top of the hour is the headline news. And Joe is on standby to bring you that. Stay with us.
Thank you so much for staying with us here on Breakfast Extra. Let's take a look at the top stories on the headlines very quickly. I'm going to start off first in Kano. Well, we begin with the election matters where the new Nigeria People's Party, NNPP, has secured all the chairmanship and councillorship positions in the just concluded local government elections across the 44 local government areas of Kano State in a sweeping victory. This was announced by the chairman of the Kano Independent Electoral Commission, Kansik Sani Mulamfashi, at the commission's headquarters, declaring the NNPP as a winner in every local government contested. 6 political parties participated in the election, which was conducted peacefully throughout the state. Well, let's stay with the election still. In the meantime, suspected thugs on Saturday invaded a polling unit in Kano Municipal Local Government area, disrupting the voting process, I beg your pardon, and maintained that elections must not hold. The suspected thugs, mostly youths, were seen chanting songs against the Kano State Independent Electoral Commission and threatening those on queue waiting to cast their ballot. Worrying scenes there. Well, away from that, no fewer than 40 people are trapped under the rubble of a building that collapsed on Saturday in the Sabon Lugbe area of the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja. Sympathizers and emergency workers are on site, working to rescue those still caught beneath the debris. The building, reportedly under construction, collapsed in the early hours, prompting calls for immediate intervention from government agencies and emergency response teams. Witnesses at the scene have expressed urgency for additional support to aid ongoing rescue efforts. Let's come now to Lagos and tell you that minor fire incident occurred on the Blue Line Rail Bridge in Lagos on Saturday at approximately 4:20 p.m. The blaze erupted from electrical cables powering the train system, causing a brief disruption to rail services. Swift action by the Sari Igomu Fire Service prevented the fire from escalating and causing major damage. Firefighters managed to extinguish the flames before any significant harm was done. Fortunately, there were no reported injuries or casualties. Well, let's move away from that one and tell you about one that's got to do with casualties. In the meantime, Nigerian Safety Investigation Bureau has reported that almost 48 hours after the tragic helicopter accident in the Port Harcourt region of Rivers State, neither the chopper's debris nor the 3 people who were left inside have been located. In a statement on Saturday by the Director of Public Affairs and Family Assistance of the NSIB, Bimbo Oladiji, stated that at 7:30 a.m. local time, rescue teams resumed search operations in line with global best practices, but left the scene same day without finding anything, nor anything at all. Recall that on Thursday, Erstwind Aviation, Sikorsky SK-76 helicopter registered 5 NBQG crashed while en route to the FPSO Neumes Anton. 8 people were on board, 2 crew members and 6 passengers. Earlier, the Commissioner for Information, Kano State, Baba Haliu Dantiye, and of course, Janadu Aminu Kishi, Senior Legislative Aide to the Deputy Senate President, shared your thoughts on the development as well concerning Kano State in a different story. Well, let's also tell you very quickly now to education matters. The Academic Staff Union of Polytechnics, ASUP, better called ASUP, has postponed its nationwide strike to December 2nd, 2024, to give the federal government time to address its demands. ASUP's October 7 ultimatum outlined 11 issues, including National Board for Technical Education interference in HND admissions, infrastructure revitalization, delayed promotions, and unpaid salary arrears. Following a stakeholders meeting on October 23, resolutions were made to address these demands. ASUP's emergency meeting on October 24 reviewed the action plan, deciding to delay the strike to assess the government's commitment. ASUP expects the government to implement the agreed option, talking about the actions to avoid a full strike by Polytechnic staff in December. Well, still staying with a similar story. In the meantime, the Delta State High Court in Warri has issued an order restraining the Joint Admission and Matriculation Board from implementing its recent policy requiring a minimum permissible age of 16 years for university admissions in the country, pending the hearing and determination of the motion on notice filed against the board. In a statement on October 16, JAM stated that only candidates who will be 16 years old by August 2025 will be admitted to tertiary institutions. The directive was a follow-up to the new policy that the Ministry of Education introduced, which states that adoption of 18 years as a minimum age for admission into tertiary institutions. JAM, however, made an exception for students seeking admission in the 2024-2025 session. Jigawa State has withdrawn from the high-profile Supreme Court case initiated by Kogi State against the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission. The case challenges the constitutionality of the EFCC's authority to investigate state funds. At a press briefing held on Saturday, Jigawa's Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice Bello Fanani confirmed the state's withdrawal. He said the move was in the best interest of Jigawa's legal and administrative priorities. Let's also tell you that President Bola Tinubu recently issued new guidelines to reduce government spending on official convoys and security. Under these measures, ministers of state, and heads of federal agencies are now limited to 3 vehicles in their convoys with no additional vehicles allowed. Each official can have a maximum of 5 security personnel, including 4 police officers and 1 Department of State Services DSS officer. The National Security Advisor says has also been tasked with consulting military and security agencies to further reduce vehicle and personal usage. These changes effective immediately reinforces Tinubu's cost-saving goals, similar to his earlier move in January, which reduced entourage sizes for both his and the Vice President's official travels. Earlier, a legal practitioner and also political analyst Towo Suroja spoke to us on this development.
President just did, President Tinubu did, which to what I understand is like telling Nigeria that, well, I'm going to buy a cup of rice and it's costing us $500,000. But however, due to the fact that we are undergoing some economic situation, I'm going to get it for 700,000 naira. So that we'll be able to be spending in millions. Remember, $500,000 and 700,000. So the president decided to tell Nigerians that, well, I'm not going to get it for $500,000. I'm going to get it for 700,000. So I just want to do away with anything that has to do with million, and let's be dealing with thousand. So if you look at it carefully, you discover that the president is basically not sincere when it comes to the policy and his action as to course of governance. When he came into power in 2023, the first thing, I think, after a gamble of how best he can manage the economy, in February 2024, he told us that, well, he's going back to the Steve Orisanya led panel report, which was set up then in 2012 by Goodluck Jonathan. And the report came out in 2014. But surprisingly, that is 8 months into his administration. Surprisingly, 8 months after that pronouncement in February, he's coming out again with more ministers. And I think he should go along the record line that he has more ministers than any other president we've ever had in Nigeria. So look at it from this perspective. Why will a minister in this hard economy be entitled to 4 security personnel?
The Nigerian Customs Service Kogi State Command has intercepted 16,300 litres of premium motor spirit, 180 pieces of donkey skins, used clothes and 74 cartons of various medicaments with a total duty paid value of over 300 million naira, displaying the seized items of the command's headquarters in Benin Kebbi. The controller of the NCS Kogi State Command, Iheanacho Ojike, credited the successful operation to the coordinated efforts of outfield officers and the command's intelligence unit. Ojike disclosed that despite the challenges and inconvenience brought by fuel scarcity, certain individuals exploited the situation by smuggling petrol products out of the country. Well, let's leave Nigeria now, head to East Africa, where another fuel tanker is overturned and burst into flames. On Saturday, at Mira Trading Center of Kabale Mbarara Highway in Kabale District in western Uganda. Kabale's traffic police officer in charge says while the driver's turn man is said to be trapped in the blazing fuel tanker, the driver has been taken to Kabale Hospital in severe condition. In the meantime, no one from the trading center was hurt and the accident scene has been thoroughly secured. Reports say in vehicle was going to Rwanda or Democratic Republic of Congo. The tragic event comes just 3 days after another fuel tanker burst into flames at Kigowa town, killing 15. Well, as we wrap up the news this morning, let's quickly tell you that another African leader is indeed set to make history as Secretary General of the Commonwealth. Pretty much good news. 61-year-old former Ghanaian foreign minister, otherwise known as Botchwe, is expected to take office on April 1st, 2025. Now, this marks a significant milestone as Botchwe will be the second African to hold this esteemed position in the Commonwealth 75 years history. That's got to do with being the Secretary General of the Commonwealth. From us here, we're saying congratulations and well done. That does it for the news for the top of the hour, this hour. The big stories will continue right here on Breakfast Extra. Let's take this break. When we come back, we'll go straight into it.
And welcome back. Now, despite billions of dollars in loans and government spending over the past decade, Nigeria's power sector continues to be plagued by grid collapses. Since 2015, the national grid has failed over 100 times, leaving millions of Nigerians in darkness and businesses struggling to stay afloat. The promises of two successive administrations, first Buhari and now Tinubu, have been met with limited success. Under Buhari, grid collapses averaged 11 per year, improving only slightly towards the end of his administration. But grid failures have continued under President Tinubu, with 12 collapses recorded within just 16 months of his term.
Well, a significant part of the funding for power sector improvement has come from the World Bank, which has provided loans totaling $4.36 billion over the last decade. However, approximately $2.96 billion remains undisbursed, hindered by slow bureaucratic processes and unmet project targets. The question on the minds of many Nigerians is this: where is the impact of this massive investment? Nigeria's power supply lags far more behind comparable global cities. While Lagos, with a population of 25 million, receives only about 1,000 megawatts, Shanghai, with a similar population, delivers over 30,000 megawatts.
In response, the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, NARC, will hold a stakeholders forum to examine the causes of grid collapses. The Minister of Power, Adebayo Adelabu, has proposed creating regional grids to alleviate the strain on the national system, admitting that Nigerians' aging infrastructure is a primary cause of its recurrent failures. So as Nigeria awaits structural reforms and the potential of regional grids, one question remains: will the investments ever yield reliable power, or are the promises of a stable grid just another flickering hope? And so joining us this morning to unpack these issues and more, and hopefully have answers to our question, we have our guest who joins us live via video chat. Suleiman Abdullah is a leadership and strategies consultant, and he joins us live right now. Thank you so much for joining us. A very good morning to you, sir.
Good morning to you. How are you over there in Lagos?
We're doing our best. We're doing our best. Welcome. I mean, let's get right into it, shall we? I'm going to just start by asking, in light of the recent grid collapses that we've seen in the past weeks, can you explain what typically triggers a collapse and why they seem so frequent? I mean, a dozen in just 16 months of one's administration, it begs to ask a lot of questions.
Thank you very much. Looking at the issue of a national grid collapse, let's look at it 3 times within a week. It's not just accidental, and we'll not look at it as a technical failure. It's a deliberate attempt by the institutions concerned and those responsible for the good maintenance and to take care of the security of all those electricity gadgets, things that are meant to put light across the nation. National grid, if it first fails in the first time, collapse for the first time, we'll look at it as an error or a mistake or accident. If that should be seen as what? As technical accident, technical failure, or something will have happened to it mechanically, then the expert will trace it immediately, not with the use of manpower. We have drones that could easily track this across the nation and spot where it is. Now we are talking of what? The digital nation. So the electricity power department should be, or sector should be able to track what is responsible for the failure in the first time, collapse in the first time. What are the technical issues? What are those factors responsible for the failure or accident? In this aspect, if there are human errors, you will need to take pragmatic actions, measures to address them in the first place. And if you're addressing them, you're addressing it once and for all, because the first thing while you are there to take care of those things that look, put measure that look, one mistake should not repeat itself in the second instance, in the second place. But now we have 3 things happening in the same place within 1 week. So this calls for a serious questioning. And if If answer is not being given, I think serious measures should be taken to address this issue. Number one, there should be disciplinary action against those responsible for the maintenance of those national grid. That is number one. Number two, what are the causes? If there are mechanical or technical errors, they should be addressed immediately. Number three, what are the proactive measures put in place to address this issue? If all these questions cannot be answered, so I think disciplinary action should be taken against those that are in charge completely. That is it, because there is no way we can say, look, the national grid collapsed 3 times in a month, and 16 times, not 12, 16 times within the beginning of this administration, from the beginning of this construction of this administration. So you see, Mr. President need to ask a question. That's number one. Number two, power sector is one of the mainstream of economic national development of any serious nation. I think from the beginning of the inception of this administration, Mr. President should have come out with an executive blueprint. What does he want? What are his needs?
Okay.
What are his measures,
Mr. Abdullah?
For the yes.
I mean, Mr. Abdullah, I mean, you've spoken at length, but would kindly appreciate if we can actually just get your responses very sharp and precise. I'd like to ask you very quickly. I mean, the ministers come out to say that we need regional plans. It means that rather than having a particular one that would serve, a particular grid that would serve everywhere, let's have them in spaces where they would serve each region. Don't you buy this idea? And don't you agree with him that we are indeed ripe for a new grids?
Good question. You see, yes, we are indeed in need of a new means of generating electricity for the entire nation. Regional grid, good and fine, but how will you do it? You have privatized the sector, electric sector. Then now let me ask the minister, is it the federal government will take responsibility of providing this regional grid establishment, or the investors? This is a very serious question. Are we talking of another budget from the national account? Then who is to be responsible for this? You have privatized it, and the privatizers, those that bought the energy sector, are there cashing money out from the people, cashing in money all the day. Then what do we do with this? Whose responsibility now to generate electricity for the nation? We have DISCOs, we have GENCOs, we have all COSCOs in the energy sector. What are all these COSCOs doing? Then let me tell you, I don't think it makes any sense that, look, after selling a suit to somebody, you add one to pay for the maintenance of the suit, the laundry services, the ironing and everything. So let's call those that have bought this energy sector, ask them some critical questions. Ask them what is their plan, and review this contract. What have they done in the last 10, 12 years? If it is not in the line and in the interest of the government and the general citizens of Nigeria, let's review it and come to our own what we have before, and we talk of regional energy generation and distribution. Because now we are talking of regional grid. Yes, all the 6 states in each of the nation could come together, 6 or 5 or 4 can come together, partner together, generate their own grid, establish their own grid or other source of generating power, such as we have the wind turbine, we have what we call the solar panel farm that could be established in the desert that will give you enough electricity, can generate enough electricity. So if they can go on this, and we have a lot of mini dams within all these states that can be converted to mini generating grid with mini turbines that can generate about 1,000, let me say 800, 500 to 1,000 megawatt daily. So what are we saying? So if we are saying that, look at this investment, because the privatization of the electricity sector have not did any positive and constructive benefit to the government, neither the Nigerian citizens. So what we are saying, look at the terms and condition, take your things back. If you are going to make it a state affairs, give it to the region, and it should be handled by what? By the new Ministry of Regional Development in collaboration with the Federal Ministry of what? Of Power. So this might take as far as it's concerned, because it's another dimension. I will, in this aspect, if what Mr. Adebayo is saying and is going to work with it practically, in this aspect, I shouldn't be biased. I will say kudos to him. But it is in the premature stage now. But if it gets matured and we look at it, we need to get our property from all these we are calling that have been privatizing. They are all making their 419. I'm sorry to say, they are just making money from Nigeria. And let me tell you why I said this. Look at the federal inland revenue. There is a portion in the bill they circulate at the end of every month. VAT. Who is responsible for this VAT? This VAT go to where? Has Federal Inland Revenue established an office in each of the GENCOs or DISCOs office to look at what has been paid and what goes to the federal government as far as VAT is concerned? That one is zero. And what has happened to all the VAT they have collected over 15 years now? If you look at it, this is a gross misconduct and corruption in the system that needs to be attended to, that needs serious attention, because we need to address this issue of corruption. That is number one. And number two, I will tell you, if you look at the sector, most of new developing areas around the state and some local government or new developing areas, you look at it, most of the people that are settling there, new settlement, establish their own life. They erect the pole, get the high tension, get their transformer, fix it. Then these people will just come and start distributing bills. So in this aspect, if you want to look at it, who is supposed to be responsible? Yes.
Mr. Abdullah, I want to talk about, Nigeria's growing population. I think we have to put this into account as well. Just as we're having a mass exodus, we're also having a population that is expanding and at a speedily rate of that. Do we have a realistic target for energy? And when it comes to energy generation and distribution within the next decade? Because it's one thing to talk about energy generation and the grid and regional grid, but what happens to the next decade as we see our population continually expand or grow?
That is the first, yes. That is in the first instance I told you that, look, Mr. President have to come with a blueprint telling the Honorable Minister of Power that this is what I want, this is what is the expectation of you. If not, the minister should be dynamic in reasoning and in up and doing with strategic plan, which is a mandate to look at who are his think tanks, who are the experts, who are the professionals in the field that he need to work.
In your expert opinion, what would then be what would that blueprint look like? If you were to itemize this, because one of the things the ministers will say is, when they took up the mantle, when they took up the positions, they don't have the tools, they don't have the necessary requirements or the things that they need. They were not provided with a blueprint. They just went in blind into this administration. I mean, that's what some critics will say, or what some of their supporters will say. And many have called for the minister's head on the chopping block, along with the other 5 that was let go just this week. But I have to ask you, if there was a blueprint, what would that look like? What would it be? Itemize it for us very quickly and very succinctly, because we're almost running out of time.
The blueprint number 1 should look at the terms and conditions, the legal framework of the privatization of the power sector, because that is where you have to look at first. Number 1. Number 2, where are areas that need to be restructured and which of the sectors that need reform? Number 3, which aspect of it that need expert and professional individuals that can actually put their experience to play? Then number 4, you look at it. What is the time framework for we to realistically achieve what is achievable as far as increasing the national megawatt is concerned from maybe 3,000 or 3,500 That's the reality about it. To like 10,000 megawatt for a populated nation like ours. So this is what it's supposed to be look like. And you look at it, the mandate, what is expected financially of us? And you can put it to the minister. How do we solve this money? That is it. Then finally, you look at it, what has been the advantage, interest, national interest of this privatization that has taken place for over 15 years? What have the government make out of it, economically, and what has been the economic deficit in it? So we look at it, the pros and cons of it. Then we need some kind of logical advice from the ministers. If we have to take our property back, we take it from them and tell them, thank you very much. For now, we are okay with you, and come to the board, the drawing board, re-strategize and look at what other options left for over to us, either regional aspect of it, or the federal government should look at it as a central coordinating unit to be taken charge by the Honorable Minister of the power sector of the power in connection with the federal with the presidency.
Mr. Abdullah, I have to ask about, the World Bank funding, and also, I don't know if this is loan or funding, but we know that a certain amount has been given when it comes to power generation. We've seen a bit of that money going to rural electrification agencies and trying to bring the rural areas and those parts that do not have power on to the grid, right? But, I would like for us to talk about that funding specifically and the power sector. Does it need more funding? Is it a lack, or do they have funding and we just haven't seen enough transparency in that sector? What exactly is the issue, and how can we ensure transparency that this money is used correctly, that Nigerians don't have to see another grid collapse at least for a year?
Thank you very much. If you are to address this issue holistically, number one, the issue of rural electrification. Who are you electrifying for? You are electrifying these rural areas after privatizing. Can you come and start mounting mast for MTN and Globacom Limited in Nigeria? It is a lot. These people have their mast all over the nation with their establishment, and they are getting their money, they are in business. This, as far as I'm concerned, what is happening to the power sector today is complete failure from A to Z. So it needs total overhaul, restructuring completely. It needs to be overhauled. And if you are talking of rural electrification, if you have electrified the whole thing, all the rural area, then now all these privatizers will now come, who have bought the energy sector, will come in and start cashing money from it, where they are reaping from where they never saw. So what are we saying? That shows what we are saying here. Our government is not responsible. If you want to be responsible to the task ahead of us, let's call these privatizers. Sorry, these are people that have bought the energy sector. What is their input since they have bought this electricity sector? What have they made out of it? Then if it is not good for anybody, let me look at it. I will give you simple analysis, please. Please, just simple analysis. Listen to me.
Please hurry up. Go ahead.
Okay. Let's look at the mainstream source of power generating in Nigeria is the Kangi Dam. The Kangi Dam was built in 1964 with 12 chambers. Out of these 12 chambers, it is only 4 chambers that are working with turbines. These turbines have been working over decades, and now they are weak. They only operate at optimal level when the water level is high during rainy season. That is why you see we have enough water, enough electricity during rainy season. The moment we start approaching dry season, just like what we are seeing now, you'll be hearing grid collapse. But
Mr. Dollar,
they are unable to give us electricity as expected. That is number one. And number two, this is the end of the year, because what was given to them as budget for this year has not been exhausted. They need to look at where to spend this money before they could give a justification for the next year budget. So now, if they told you the grid collapsed 21 times within 1 week, so we should expect a collapse again as I'm talking to you now, because they need to justify the expenses they are doing with what? With the current budget before they talk of another one. So now, I'm still talking at what? What we are saying now is that, look, we are not far-fetched from what? From corruption, insensitive of what those in charge of what? Of the energy sector, and the complacent in the whole sector by those responsible for it. The regulatory agencies are not up to the task.
All right, Mr. Abdallah, I hate to do this, but I think we need to cut in. I think you've explained well enough, but of course, some experts will argue with you that Nigeria does not depend on the dam anymore. It uses fossils, gas, of course, hydrothermal energy to actually generate power. I mean, that's a fact, though. They're still going to argue with you. But I think when we have you again, we'll touch base on these possibilities and the questions as well. If truly is a dam that only generates power, especially with your statement. Thank you for your time. We truly appreciate your time with us this morning. It's a great pleasure talking to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, let's move on to our next story this morning. And it's got to do with that one that's indeed bedeviling Nigeria's chances of either jackpotting or moving from point A to point B. I mean, Judith, you touched on it when you started the show.
Oh, so, yes, indeed.
Yeah.
It's in our aviation news, by the way. In aviation news, Nigeria's leading carrier, Air Peace, has announced a steep increase in ticket prices, with the economy sits now at 300,000 naira for a one-way trip and business class reaching 400,000 naira starting November 1st. Air travel costs could effectively price many out of the skies, especially as other airlines are reportedly preparing to follow suit. Now, this adjustment reflects both economic pressures on the industry and a shrinking capacity of aircraft.
Well, also in a quick response, the Air Peace team did also come out yesterday to state categorically that the press release that you saw didn't actually come from them. So they quickly also mentioned that the hike in prices are actually not what came from their office. Regardless of that, many Nigerians took to social media to equally mention that they experienced a hike in transport fare, especially commuting or flying from Lagos to Abuja and also to the southeast. But anyway, in the middle and in the mix of this, joining us to discuss the challenges and implications of this fare hike is Namdi Udo, an airspace infrastructure specialist and also an aviation consultant. Thank you so much for being here this morning.
Thank you, and good morning to you.
All right,
good
great.
morning, viewers.
Good morning. I think I'm going to go first. My question to you is just clear and simple. We were waiting for this. We're expecting that since there was an increase in premium motor spirit, we're also going to see an increase in Jet A1 fuel, and no doubt it was going to impact even heavily on frequent flyers. What do you think will eventually happen now that we're seeing a back and forth on is there fare hike, there's no fare hike? What do you think will eventually happen to Nigeria's airspace?
First, I want to congratulate Air Peace for their 10 years anniversary. It would have made unfair for Air Peace to do this on the time they've called out all of us for a celebration. Unfortunately, there is no way they did not increase in airfares. Dollar has gone out of reach, and this is an industry that is foreign exchange domiciled. So it's expected. I mean, try to buy the suit you're wearing, or let my sister try to buy that hair she's wearing tomorrow morning and get back to me and tell me the price. Everything is out of reach. And it is unfortunate that economists have failed to address the issues. I would wish that the Minister of Power and Minister of Finance listen to the last guest. Because some of these things the media does is to help the nation. For all intents and purposes, Sunday morning, I should be somewhere worshiping quietly, but I have to be here. It's my own contribution to nation building. Why can't people, Minister of Finance, Minister of Aviation, and everyone involved sit down with the airlines? What can we do to keep prices stable? These are not rocket science. So we expect an increase. Go online, try to book a flight from the 15th of December to the 4th of January and get back to me and tell me the prices you get. So you don't need to tell us there's been an increase. It's demand and supply. How many flights goes to where? Or Port Harcourt, or Uyo, or Enugu? So I don't want to go into the economic indices of why prices are high. There are so many of them. When we go on in this conversation, you will hear from me. However, like I said, airfares is expected to be high, both in this season and for cost of living.
Whether Air Peace have increased their prices or not, given their statement, one thing is certain from responses and reactions from Nigerians: price have hiked, fare prices have gone up. And so, with these concerns that we're hearing from the air travel is now out of reach for Nigerians, I want you to talk about the implications of that as a mode of transportation. People know it to be quick, easy. In other parts of the world, it's just another means of transportation. But here, it's now astronomically out of reach for even the middle class.
Economics. There must be rail, there must be water, there must be road, and there must be air. Why can't we develop an integrated transport system for our country? It's not difficult. If I am left with no option than to go to Abuja by air, the businessman must go for the prime price. That's simple economics. I have friends and family going to London from Aberdeen yesterday. They took the cheapest fare by flying much later indeed. In Nigeria, after a certain time at sunset, most airports are closed for obvious reasons. For security, traveling from that airport to the city. So we need to begin to have these conversations more practically. I don't want ministers come to grandstand and talk. We had this for 8 years. What did we achieve in 8 years? We lost our goods to Dubai. Nigerians lost to get visas to Dubai. And Nigerian air that we gave to the best hands to manage to optimize our relationship with the Ethiopian airline failed. We brought in an aircraft and everybody found out that there were no truthfulness in those businesses. And these are ministers who are Nigerians who made promises. Now we're in again for promises of what is going to happen in the industry. I was at the APC event, and it's all glory and glory and glory. But I took a position. What is going to happen to APC the next 10 years? Are they going to have maintenance-based Nigeria? Will there be maintenance availability? Will there be spares payable in Naira? What can government do? Government is for the citizens. Airfares will go so high and airlines will find themselves out of business. What will they do? Shut down?
Mazurudo, I'm so glad we're talking about, I'm so glad you're bringing up maintenance, because I'm going to pick up on that for my next line of question. You said maintenance. What's going to happen to maintenance for Air Peace, taking Air Peace, for example, in the next decade, in the next 10 years? And we've seen this same question pop up in the last administration 8 years ago regarding maintenance and also aircraft shortages. I want you to talk on the implication, the impact of maintenance, whether it's spare parts, aircraft parts, and availability of FX, and how this trickles down to the fare prices, the cost of flight ticket, domestic flight ticket for the average Nigerian. Just simplify it for the sake of our viewers.
Yeah, one of the basic principles of aircraft maintenance and aircraft management or airline business is an acronym we call ACMI, Aircraft Crew Maintenance and Insurance. Each time you buy a ticket, a good financial analyst in an airline removes the component of those things. Now, if I remove 10,000 naira from a ticket and set it aside for maintenance, how much is that in dollars? It's nothing. So, with an airline like APC, over 40 aircrafts, in his fleet. How would they raise foreign exchange in a year to maintain those aircrafts? It's virtually impossible. So sometimes you hear there's an air return because the aircraft could not continue to destination. Well, every businessman must protect his investment. Every investor is interested in profit. There is no way an airline will continue to spend money and no profit. One of the ways airlines can be profitable in Nigeria is to have maintenance organizations established in Nigeria. We've been speaking about this for years. Maybe there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Even through the dynamism of their government is setting up an MRO in Uyo, but that's also not enough. That's also not able to take care of all kinds of aircrafts. Yes, the minister had made a promise that there's going to be an MRO. I want to hear an MRO has been established, not it will be established. We'll be hearing it will be established for so many years. We should stop TV presentation and good outfits and playing the good politician style. We want some practical things and just tell us the MRO is here. So that's maintenance. And when is that critical? I don't think any airline will compromise safety for economic reasons. I wouldn't think for all the CEOs I know personally in this country would like to compromise that. But take it that you are caught in between money and safety. Which one will you go for? So I am looking forward to a more deliberate, dynamic approach to seeking to have aircraft maintained in Nigeria. It's very important. We say foreign exchange, we have cheaper labor, we have the manpower in ACA to oversight, to provide airworthiness, oversight, and functions over these airlines. This is the grammar. This should be what should be on the front burner today. All the leaders in the industries, in the parastatals are capable. Are they allowed to exercise their full potential as MDs and CEOs, or they're being micromanaged politically? That's also a problem.
Okay, let's.
So we must begin to look more critically than this. There are certain information sometimes we hear politically that should come from the professionals. The MD fund should be able to tell us who has been given land to build a maintenance base, how far have they gone? Not the minister saying we will. NCA should be able to tell us, oh, they've seen the SOPs of this upcoming SOP standard operating procedure for this maintenance repair organization that is coming on board. I don't want to hear that from the minister. Not anymore.
All right.
Is NCA benchmarking them and telling us what they're doing, and the directors will come here, and we as consultants and professionals with 44 years in the industry, I should be able to engage. These are either my colleagues or my proteges or my younger ones, and they know I know what they know.
All right.
And so are many. Not the minister. I can't argue with the minister. I can't tell you now he's not doing well.
All right.
When he leaves office,
let me
will come and run by
Permit me
him.
to butt in very quickly. I mean, we've talked about the price hike, maintenance, and all that. But let's look at the sector critically, very critically. There seems to be a challenge. I mean, you do recall, you said over 44 or 40 years of experience in the aviation space, which is, I mean, quite commendable. I do recall that during the 40 years plus of your experience, Nigeria had its own, carrier. In between, we also had many competitors. I wouldn't want to call them competitors, but let me use that for the sake of the right word. And we did see prices stabilize. There seemed to be some form of what people usually say when there's competition, it helps grow the business. But these days, the competition seems to be at a minimal. Now, aside that, some have attributed this to the fact that there's wet leasing, dry leasing, in which the minister also said is affecting the sector. What say you about that? I mean, other countries engage in this. We've seen Ethiopia and the likes do that. So what say you about that? Should we abolish the wet leasing and dry leasing? If not, how do we even have flight carriers at all?
I don't qualify to engage him. I'm not a politician. The minister should transfer those positions to the DG of NCA, Captain Najomo, who have known virtually for 40-something years, knows his father and his mother. We are colleagues. When he says anything, I will engage him. Wet lease and dry lease are terminologies to show what comes with the aircraft and leasing. Does it come with a crew? Does it come with this? So wet lease or dry lease suits the man who is leasing the aircraft. We don't have all the money to do things all at once. So, like I said, and I repeat, the ministers should let the technocrats, the professionals, lead in this conversation so that we can interrogate them. If there are 2-3 people on this TV show with me now, let's say it's Najomo or Bumi or Fan or AD Nama Farouk, I will be so comfortable. We will box and we will agree, and they will listen to me, and I will hear them and see their difficulties I will have. Even the National Assembly, who does oversight, should do more pounding on all of this than whatever the minister says we're wrong with it. I won't discuss wet leasing and dry leasing like the minister has said. No. It's not only peculiar in Nigeria. Many countries have had successful dry lease, successful wet lease, and they are doing well. So, like I said, and I insist, tell me things that have been said by a colleague of mine so I can interrogate it positively from a position of knowledge, not a position of brief, written by some persons under the minister. They come and talk about, no, I won't do that. Right. I'll be unfair to my exposure, to my experience, and to Nigerian viewers. Wet lease is good, dry lease is good. It's up to the business.
Well noted, Mr. Odo. Mr. Odo is well noted, but of course, these are the challenges that it doesn't matter if the minister said it. I mean, if you're going to pay a high price for tickets, I don't think the minister said it. It's the reality on ground. Mm-hmm. If many experts, including your colleagues, whom we've spoken to as well, have said, okay, there's issue of wet leasing, we might want to look at it, and I'm sure you're not, you wouldn't say you don't know of the situation that took place just a few years ago, where the former minister had gone to Ethiopia, got a flight in, did a celebration with it. It's still your industry. I'm sure you know about that. So, but if you don't want to talk about it, it's fine.
I mean, what's more important here is all about, holding people accountable, right? At the sake of, keeping relationships and for the fear of burning bridges, one thing is important. The aviation sector is a public sector, and it matters a lot to Nigerians, and also there are other sectors that connect to it, most importantly tourism, and by extension that means jobs not only for foreign direct investment, but also for locals as well. I mean, for Lagos, Badagry, Obudukatu Ranch, Kogi Springs, it's endless, and all those hinge on domestic aviation working, whether it's through intervention subsidies or government intervention or public-private partnership. One thing is certain, it has to work. Mazi, I want to say thank you so much for joining us. Mazi Udo, Namdi Udo here. He's an aviation consultant, and he joined us today to talk in depth about the possible aviation flight hikes. Once again, many thanks.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure always.
Thank you. And we come back into the studio. It's time for us to bring sports, and we got Udoka on standby.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Joe. Good morning, Judith. And of course, we are talking sports.
Wait, hang on. Don't do that. Don't put the cart or the horse before the cart. This too, all right? I need this thing to be 3 ways so I can call them out.
Right.
You know the WhatsApp staff group, right? That you have, the platform that everyone has. This too, right, are the biggest troll on the face of the earth.
What do they put in this cup? Wow, it's extra.
They're extra. They are the biggest. Anytime the people that are playing, Chelsea, because they're Arsenal team, right? Chelsea, Liverpool, or Manchester, it is over. They will troll, and if you just keep going, just know it's them. It's the two of them.
Woo!
And I've been waiting for this day.
It's going down today.
It's going down.
It's going down today. And I'm sure he has it on the lineup of his. If he doesn't, I will do the story myself. I will read it myself.
A lot of things, definitely. I mean, when it comes to trolling, Joe is top notch right there.
Joe is a pro. I will leave it at that.
I'm just saying,
talking about trolling, Arsenal will take on Liverpool later today. And if Arsenal loses, I'm sure I love messages will come through.
I cannot wait.
Group.
And
Chelsea
the thing is
playing as well.
I must give you guys props. You guys are very good sports. Because when they throw you guys take it off the chin. But when it's your turn there, Joe comes with all the Arsenal ready to go.
Definitely. And of course, the Real Madrid fans are not having it easy right now. But let's start off with women's football. As the United States of America ended Nigeria's FIFA Under-17 Women's World Cup title hopes with a 2-0 victory in their quarter-final clash on Saturday. Now, 2 goals from Catherine Fuller and Kimball Asciano were enough to defeat the Flamingos as the Americans avenged their 2022 quarterfinal loss to Nigeria. Fuller put the Americans ahead from the penalty spot in the 43rd minute before Asciano doubled the lead in the 74th minute to seal victory for the 3-time quarterfinalists. The defeat ended Nigeria's impressive run in the tournament, where they had won all their group matches against New Zealand, Ecuador, and Dominican Republic, scoring 9 goals and conceding just 1. Sad loss for the Flamingos right there. But of course, moving on to the senior cadet now, a first-half brace from captain Rasheedat Ajibade secured Nigeria Super Falcons a 2-0 win over the Green Ladies of Algeria in an international friendly at the Remo Star Stadium at Ikenne on Saturday. Ajibade opened the scoring in the 24th minute, latching onto a long-range pass from the midfield and lobbing the Algerian goalkeeper who had rushed out of her area. Now, the 24-year-old also went on to double the lead just before halftime with a stunning volley from outside the box. The win for the Super Falcons marked a solid start for Justin Madugu's side, who are in the process of rebuilding after a disappointing Olympic campaign. Still talking football, let's head straight to the La Liga, where it was all about the El Clasico, and Robert Lewandowski scored a brace in 3 minutes as La Liga leaders Barcelona thrashed Real Madrid in the El Clasico to move 6 points clear of their rivals. Real Madrid were looking to extend their run of unbeaten games to 43 in the league, which would have equaled the record set by Barcelona between April 2017 and May 2018. That hope was dashed after a devastating second-half performance by the opponents, Barcelona, at the Bernabeu. After a goalless first half, Lewandowski broke the deadlock in the 54th minute with a clinical finish from Marc Casado's through ball. The Polish striker then stunned the host with a second goal, heading Alejandro Balde's cross into the right corner. Now, Spanish teenage star Lamine Yamal got Barcelona's third, while Rafinha ensured Barcelona were out of reach with a 4th goal late on. So it was 4-0 in favor of Barcelona, defeating Real Madrid, the Angels, right there at the Bernabeu Stadium. Moving on to the world of car racing, talking about Formula 1 now. Ferrari driver Carlos Sainz took pole position at the Mexican Grand Prix by beating Max Verstappen and Lando Norris on Saturday. And Sainz took his first pole for over a year with 2 laps that were good enough as Verstappen rescued his qualifying after his first lap in Q3 was deleted for track limits. The Dutchman was 0.225 seconds down on Sainz, but he will be relieved to start ahead of Norris, who is 57 points behind him in the Drivers' Championship. Now, McLaren went into the qualifying as favourites, but Norris was unable to find more pace when it mattered most and will hope to get the jump on Verstappen on the long run down to turn 1. Meanwhile, Charles Leclerc, who was left frustrated with a poor final lap as the track evolved, will start in 4th ahead of Mercedes' pair of George Russell and Lewis Hamilton. Interesting right there as we look forward to the Mexican Grand Prix that will go down later today, and be sure that I'll bring you all the updates coming from Mexico. And remember, you can get more of these interesting news on sports on our show In the Game, which kicks off by 11 a.m. And that's a wrap on Sport Update on Breakfast Extra. I am Udoka Njoko saying thank you for watching. We'll go on a break. When we return, the show continues.
You're watching Breakfast Extra here on News Central Television. Let's go straight to the headlines. Let's begin by telling you that the Inspector General of Police, Kayode Egbetokun, has expressed displeasure over the confrontation between police officers and operatives of the Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps in Oshogbo, the Osun State capital. An NSCDC officer identified simply as Oweye was reportedly assaulted while on guard duty in an estate and subsequently detained by the police. The incident was said to have caused a dispute between the Osun command of the NSCDC and the Nigeria Police Force. The Osun State government later held a meeting with security heads to resolve the rift. However, the IG, in a statement released by the force spokesperson, Muyiwa Dejobi, described the confrontation as unprofessional and directed the Assistant Inspector General of Police in charge of Zone 11 Oshogbo to conduct a discreet investigation into the root cause of the incident. Away from that, let's give you an update. No fewer than 40 people are indeed trapped under the rubble of a building that collapsed on Saturday in the Sabon Lugbe area of the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja. Sympathizers and emergency workers are on site working to rescue those still caught beneath the debris. The building, reportedly under construction, collapsed in the early hours, prompting calls for immediate intervention from government agencies and emergency response teams. Witnesses at the scene have expressed urgency for additional support to aid ongoing rescue efforts. Meanwhile, another disaster. Minor fire incident occurred on the Blue Line Rail Bridge in Lagos on Saturday at approximately 4:20 p.m. The blaze erupted from electrical cables powering the train system, causing a brief disruption to rail services. Swift action by the Sari Igomu Fire Service prevented the fire from escalating and causing major damage. Firefighters managed to extinguish the flames before any significant harm was done. Fortunately, there were no reported injuries or casualties. In the meantime, Nigerian Safety Investigation Bureau has reported that at almost 48 hours after the tragic helicopter accident in the Port Harcourt region of Rivers State, neither the chopper's debris nor the 3 people who were left inside have been located. In a statement on Saturday by the Director of Public Affairs and Family Assistance of the NSIB, Bimbo Oladeji, stated that as at 7:30 a.m. local time, rescue teams resumed search operations in line with global best practices, but left the scene same day without finding anything nor anyone. Recall that on Thursday, Estwin Aviation Psychosky SK-76 helicopter registered 5NBQG crashed while en route to the FPSO Nims Anton. 8 people were on board. You also had crew members as well as 6 passengers. Let's move on now to Kano State election and election matters where the New Nigeria People's Party, NNPP, has secured all the chairmanship and councillorship positions in the just concluded local government elections across the 44 local government areas of Kano State in a sweeping victory. This was announced by the chairman of the Kano Independent Electoral Commission, Kansiek Sani Malumfashi, at the commission's headquarters, declaring the NNPP as the winner in every local government contested. 6 political parties participated in the election, which was conducted peacefully throughout the state. And staying there, suspected thugs on Saturday invaded a polling unit in Kano Municipal Local Government area, disrupting the voting process and maintained that elections must not hold. The suspected thugs, mostly youths, were seen chanting songs against the Kano State Independent Electoral Commission and threatened those on the queue waiting to cast their ballot. And over now to educational matters, the Academic Staff Union of Polytechnics, ASUP, has postponed its nationwide strike to December 2nd, 2024 to give the federal government time to address its demands. ASUP's October 7 ultimatum outlined 11 issues, including National Board for Technical Education interference in H&D admissions, infrastructure revitalization, delayed promotions, and unpaid salary arrears. Following a stakeholders meeting on October 23, resolutions were made to address these demands. ASUP's emergency meeting on October 24 reviewed the action plan, deciding to delay the strike to assess the government's commitment. ASUP expects the government to implement the agreed upon actions to avoid a full strike by polytechnic staff in December. And that's all that we have for you on Breakfast Extra, and of course headlines here for this hour. Stay tuned, you get more headlines in the course of our news bulletin, but in the meantime we'll get back into the stories, but that will be after this break. Stay with us.
And it's time for today's Extra Special. We tackle a topic that has been on everyone's mind, especially after recent global health crisis, and that is vaccinations. In a world where diseases can spread across borders faster than ever, vaccines have become one of our best lines of defense. But here's a pressing question. Why does Africa, a continent with over 1 billion people, still rely on so heavily on imported vaccines? And what would it take for Africa to become self-sufficient in vaccine production?
Well, to help us understand this better, we are indeed thrilled to be joined by Dr. Alera Roberts, Associate Professor, College of Medicine, UNILAG, that's University of Lagos. Also joining us is Dr. Philip Njemanze, Chairman, International Institute of Advanced Research and Training, Chidi Khan Medical Center. Thank you so much, distinguished gentleman and, of course, lady, for joining us this very beautiful Sunday morning. First off, just on a lighter note, I hope we didn't interrupt your service this morning.
Not really.
Certainly did.
I know we did, but of course, it's a call to duty. Well, thank you for honoring our invitation. I think this conversation is very, very, very key, especially now that we have been clamoring for vaccine production here in Africa. But let's start off with our very first question. Let's look at the COVID-19 pandemic, which ordinarily and clearly highlighted significant global disparities in vaccine access. I mean, with African nations facing severe shortages and delays, could you start by explaining why Africa has been so dependent on foreign vaccine manufacturers like Moderna and the likes, and how this impacts public health outcomes on the continent? I'd like to start with you first, Dr. Alera.
Well, thank you very much for having me. And yes, you certainly did interrupt my Sunday service, but like you said, it's a call to duty. So here we are. Right. So the truth of the matter is that Africa's dependence on the foreign vaccine production is a result of decades of underinvesting in local factories, underfunding the education sector that could have and should have produced the skills that are needed. We have to remember that producing vaccines is complicated, requiring a lot of high-tech equipment, strict quality checks, a steady supply chain, including power, all things that are really not fully developed in many African countries. And like you said, the COVID-19 pandemic exposed the underbelly of our weakened underbelly, because when the global demand grew, wealthier countries prioritized vaccinating their own population, and the shortages meant that many African countries simply couldn't vaccinate their own people, which made the pandemic last longer and hurt both local and global public health and the economy. So we must develop the ability to produce vaccines locally. Let me just debunk a myth here, because this is a perfect opportunity. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and all these other development partners have no need to use vaccines to do anything nefarious to the African population. As we can see, all they need to do is withhold vaccines, and we'll depopulate ourselves.
That's a strong one there. They need to just withhold vaccines. Is that what you say?
This is what COVID-19 showed us.
Now, Doctor,
think about it very carefully. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, let's switch now to Dr. Njemanze and have your reaction to Dr. Alera's submissions.
Yes, thank you for having me. And I would like to actually take us back a little bit. Africa invented vaccination. Actually, it's one of the things that went from traditional medicine to modern medicine. You will remember that if you go to African villages, you will still see scarification. Scarification is a form of vaccination. Yes, people talk about its traditional importance, making marks and all that. But if you go today, even today, to places like Edo State, with people with splenomegaly, so when there is an infection that is affecting the immune system, the spleen grows big. And you will see that most of these people carry scarifications, and it seems to do some good for that. So, and that the whole concept of exposing somebody in a controlled manner to environmental microbes so that the person will produce antibodies is actually what is underlying scarification as a health procedure. So we cannot say that there is no indigenous knowledge about vaccination. It was just done differently in our own traditional ways. Now, the modern issue of vaccination and why we should have our own indigenous system of production of modern vaccines, because vaccines are national security issues. No matter how good there is intention by any international organization, any other country, any country that chooses can use vaccination to wipe out a whole nation. And it can be done so easily by just putting a vaccine contaminant. So why would any nation submit its whole population to this type of danger? So that is why in almost all countries, there is the effort to produce vaccines or have their own indigenous methods to license that vaccine and reproduce it in their own country. So this is why it is of great importance. You know, we remember in the 70s when there was all this thing about cholera vaccine, and which was invented by a Nigerian professor, Obinjoko. So we actually have the indigenous knowledge, but the political will to organize, leaving out all the so-called international networks of supply and do our own, because it is national security. Nobody who is in their right mind of leadership can outsource vaccination to other countries. It shouldn't be done. So that's why we should produce our own vaccines in Nigeria. If India can do it, we can do it also. So I think the problem has been the politics of it, and the lack of political will.
Right. So for the both of you, you're almost towing the same line, but again, painting very dire and maybe grotesque, picture. A nation can wipe out an entire continent if they choose to do so, by bio weapon with vaccination. So political will then is the issue, because we've seen a push from various stakeholders, including the African Union, to encourage vaccine production here and on the continent. What progress has been made so far? And what do you think is then the holdup when it comes to political will, if we're seeing various stakeholders like the AU calling and encouraging for vaccine production here on the continent? I'll start with you, Dr. Alera.
Well, yes, there have been encouraging progress, largely thanks to commitments from the African Union, like you said, and partnerships with international stakeholders. There are a few I can think of, like the Pasteur Institute in Senegal, the BioVac in South Africa, both of which are being involved in the production of COVID-19 vaccines, as well as other essential vaccines. And of course, Nigeria and Egypt are also expanding their pharmaceutical capacities in this regard to be able to produce vaccines, but the mRNA vaccines are easier. Then you've got a partnership between BioVac and Pfizer, Moderna to produce the mRNA vaccine, and that way we're building momentum, and with sustained investment and technical support, we can contribute to the global vaccine supply. However, like you quite rightly said, when we're talking about political will, there needs to be a lot more of put your money where your mouth is, and not just the mouthing of it and the words and the beautiful speeches that are written with pretty PowerPoints, that take place at international dialogues. We need to actually be able to put our money where our mouth is, and actually, I can never, the minute this thing came up, I recall going to school all those many decades ago, don't ask. And there was a federal vaccine production center there, right there in Yaba. And that's how we were able to contribute significantly to the eradication of smallpox.
That's deep, though. I mean, that's like way back. Let me come to you, Dr. Njemanze.
Not that way back. I'm not that old.
Sorry. I like where this is going. All right, let me go to Dr. Njemanze. I have just two questions. I think these two questions I'd like you to touch on it first, and maybe we can go back to Dr. Alera. My first question simply is there an exit of international interests? Let me use that word, because we do recall that late 2001, Moderna had said it was going to build a vaccine factory in Kenya. And this news excited Africans, because finally East Africa was going to be a home where vaccines could actually circulate to the rest part of Africa. But we do know that this did not happen. What do you think attributed to that exit or the stop of creating that vaccine center for East Africa and, of course, cut across the other part of Africa? That's my first question. My second question is, we did also see a syringe company in Akwa Ibom, the largest in Nigeria, where they were producing syringes and so on. And all of a sudden, many have blamed the government of not supporting them, hence why they've exited the scene. Do you think it's also a problem for Africa? We're not willing, the willingness is not there. These are my two-part questions. So first off, I'm talking about Moderna, the United States company. Secondly, I'm talking about Africans not even honing or supporting our own. For example, the syringe company in Akwa Ibom. Dr. Njemanze, I'd like you to go, please.
Yes, I remember the incident about Moderna, and because that was actually flight to actually calm the vaccine hesitancy that was increasingly growing in Africa. And then the fact that the production could be moved to Africa seemed to be welcome development. However, I think we have to go beyond all these foreign investors coming to do things for us. Africans are the most innovative people on earth. We created human civilization. The Africans are the oldest people you have on earth. People don't know this. You have Africans living, the Caucasians are only 6,000 to 7,000 years. Africans have been living for hundreds of thousands of years. So we created human civilization. The innovation is there. But what has happened is that our governments have failed. The present governments have failed to recognize the ingenuity of African intellectuals and creativity of the African entrepreneur. So this is what needs to be driven. This is what needs incentives have to be given. The government must not look at the private enterprise as just a way to extract taxes. They should look at the private enterprise. In Europe, they give subsidies to companies. That's why the companies grow. People just have intellectual property, and then they go and they're giving funds from government. This should be happening here. If anybody wants to set up a vaccine factory, the government should underwrite, use the taxpayers' money, make sure that the initial capital expenditure is made until that company grows. And you are going to see vaccines for almost everything, and we'll be exporting vaccines from Nigeria across Africa and across the world. So the innovation, the private enterprise initiative that is here is what the present governments have been looking outside. You know, somebody looking at something that in Sokoto when the thing is in his Sokoto. So it is the problem of the government. We have to change this governance mindset that the best things will come from abroad. No, we should look inwards and see the enormous creativity of our people, even in vaccine. And I'm telling you, there are many enterprises which will start today Should government announce that they are going to say, let's give 100 million naira to any company which is going to start a vaccine industry? You will see about 10 vaccine industries which will spring up successful in the next 10 years.
That's
Very interesting there. Dr. Alera, I'm going to, if you want to reply or if you have any comments regarding Joe's question, please go ahead because I have a question for you.
Well, the only thing that I'm going to add to this is that as a public health physician, of course, in the entirety of the health sector, from service delivery to utilization, research and development, teaching, developing, questioning, regulating, collaboration is essential. And these international partnerships, we must admit, bring in critical technology transfer, which we have failed to develop over the last 45 years. That's just the fact of the matter on ground. They bring in technical expertise, they bring in funding that supports us to establish and maintain manufacturing capabilities. So yes, while I would love to see a situation where we can throw out all international donor funding, everybody knows my opinion on international donor funding. The truth of the matter is that at this point in time, we need to be able to leapfrog our journey to self-sufficiency. And for that reason, we need to be able to collaborate.
But
you had a question, ma'am.
Yes, I'm so glad you had to bring collaboration into this, because vaccines aren't just expensive, right, to produce when you think about it. When you look at the cost of it, there's a lot of science that goes into it, which is, you know, the testing and everything else before they come to a particular dose, a particular formula, and then mass produce it for it to be sold. There's a lot of scientists behind the closed doors that I've been doing the testing for years. So they are expensive to begin with before being mass produced. And then they are costly to distribute as well, especially in areas with limited infrastructure or even a supply chain that like in Nigeria. Every other place it works, but Nigeria has its own peculiarities. Nigeria, as we always say. And so that I ask you, in terms of partnership and, you know, funding strategies, if you are saying remove the donors or the shoestrings, we have to bootstrap ourselves, what would that look like? Give us, strategy for that.
Well, the truth of the matter is, like you said, there are huge supply chain challenges across the health sector. This impacts service delivery, vaccine accessibility. You're thinking of the cold chain infrastructure. We're thinking of transportation. We're thinking of distribution network. We're thinking of security. You know, Nigeria is Nigeria. Let's be very factual and honest. But there are a few initiatives that we can talk about. And the African Union has what they call the African Vaccine Acquisition Task Team, AVATT. And then they partner with organizations such as Gavi, the Global Alliance for Vaccines and Immunization, WHO, and the Africa CDC to provide vital support for logistics and distribution. Then there is the funding. Who's paying for all of this? So various African countries are now exploring public-private partnerships that they can implement to fund and scale these operations by addressing particularly supply chain barrier. And so these partnerships are still crucial to ensuring that the vaccines reach every community effectively and efficiently.
All right, Dr. Njumanzi, it would be a disservice if we have this conversation on vaccines and we don't touch on the most pressing one as we speak currently, and that's got to do with Mpox. Quite sadly, over 500 deaths recorded. Africa is at the center of it once again. So now that we're having a conversation, Africa is in the spotlight once more. Sadly, no African country has a vaccine for Mpox. Rather, we see dependency on countries like Denmark, France, and the likes. What do you think we need to do to avoid seeing an increase in death tolls? And most importantly, we've talked about partnerships. And do you think this is the wake-up call that Africa truly needs now?
Well, first and foremost, I would like to say that there is really no vaccine for Mpox. What you have are smallpox vaccines that were repurposed for Mpox. So that has to be underscored. Secondly, is vaccine the only path for effective prevention of disease? This is also not very true. So I think there have been, with the COVID-19 mentality, there has been this idea that, oh no, any disease that comes up, you have to vaccinate everybody. This is wrong. They didn't do, the US and most of the Western countries were highly vaccinated, but they had the highest deaths. So we cannot look at that. So this idea of that, oh no, vaccine is a magic bullet and immediately any disease springs up, we vaccinate everybody against that disease. Really, no, that's not true. If you look at the data, the practical data will show you that vaccines did not do the job, even in the United States, where you will say that conditions were met. So I don't think that the path of prescribing vaccines as a panacea for all the new found infections is correct. The vaccines are useful for limited exposure in a vulnerable group. And this is not something you should prescribe for everybody. Everybody will be vaccinated for that disease. And of course, the data shows that it doesn't even work. So I think we have to do a rethinking. Now, how will we address the issues of shortfalls or new emerging diseases? We must look at things from a different perspective. Once a disease is a self-limiting disease and we can contain it where it came up, then you can almost discount the use of vaccines as a widespread measure. It can be only limited for that area where it is. And most of those things can be done within the communities that are there. So I don't think that there should be this whole COVID-19 very wrong psychology that we have to have vaccines to administer to everybody in case any emerging disease comes up. That is a wrong assumption.
Well, I mean, we want to say thank you. We do hope that Africa will soon be the hub, for vaccine development, and very quickly. Now, I know that we're out of time, but I must be able to point out a couple of things. We understand there's been an integrated vaccination campaign for yellow fever, measles, and HPV in Lagos State. Now, Dr. Alero, I understand that this has been scheduled for October 19 to 31st. So very quickly, because we're pressed for time, we have less than a minute just to give us an overview of this particular campaign for the sake of our viewers at home. Just sensitize them, please.
Oh, in less than a minute, that's going to not really. But again, we have to look at the fact that the last time we did a measles mass immunization campaign was 2022. In that period of time till now, a cohort of babies have been born who have reached the vulnerable age of 9 months, and they are not immunized. We are likely to see another measles outbreak. Ditto for the yellow fever as well. That we have this serious mosquito-borne viral disease, and we need to be able to vaccinate a vulnerable population that have grown since the last time we did this. We've been experiencing outbreaks since 2017, and we need to be able to have this mass immunization. Nobody needs illness in this challenging economy that we have nowadays. Regarding cervical cancer, before I run out of time, second leading cause of death among women. We're seeing it in younger and younger ages of women now. We're seeing women in their 30s and 40s succumbing to cervical cancer. The one cancer that can be prevented by vaccination. And while we don't want to legislate anybody's human behavior, getting the girls vaccinated against cervical cancer with the HPV is paramount. How did I do?
All right.
Very well.
You did well. You did well.
Excellently well.
Good timing. Good timing. On that note, I want to say thank you to you both so much for sharing your insights with us today. Dr. Alero Roberts, who is the Associate Professor, College of Medicine, University of Lagos. And not forgetting Dr. Philip Njamanze, Chairman, International Institute of Advanced Research and Training, Chilicon Medical Center. Thank you for your time, and we hope that you can still make service now that you're leaving us behind. Thank you. All right. It's been a fantastic conversation, no doubt. Thank you. I mean, we've looked at this generally, and
Yes.
we can be certain that there's a lot to talk about. By
So
the way,
much.
they had commissioned the research center in Enugu,
Yes.
University of Nigeria and Nsukka.
Yes.
This was done, I think it was May 2024, if I do recall, sometime
Earlier this year.
Have we gotten anything out of that university yet? Well, we're hopeful that we will get something. It's not the first, actually, in Nigeria. We've had somewhere in the north as well. I remember I did an interview about 3-4 years back with a professor who had said they're working tirelessly in partnership with the United Nations and so on. But then again,
Right. I mean, and also I remember having a sit down with who he used to be the Director General of NCDC, and he's now the Assistant Director General for the WHO, is none other than Dr. Chikwe Ihekweazu. And I remember reading his book and how leading towards COVID-19, all that he had to do, and how, get this, they had no allocation for the NCDC, which is the National Commission for Disease Control. They had no allocation for this. And he had to lobby for an allocation so they could get funds to actually have quarantine locations and have also substations in the 6 geopolitical zones in Nigeria. And if he was not working towards that and partnering with, non-governmental organizations and international bodies who were, giving them funds, just imagine what could have been if he was not preparing and preempting 2020.
That's a tough conversation that we'll look to have. But of course, these conversations, like I say, can be taken off online, can be taken offline, and also can be spoken of anywhere. We've had multiple conferences, we've had discussions on this, we've had professionals in their field, just like the two wonderful guests who have joined us. And sometimes it worries because they have the answer to these problems. We just need to ensure that it's not talk the talk, but we have to walk the talk.
There we go.
Exactly, walk the talk. Anyway, we'll go for a quick break. When we come back, we would be focusing on Africa. Particularly, we would go to southern part of Africa, Mozambique, where it is not all uhuru, especially for the citizens. Protests erupted, results were read, but many said no. We'll talk about that story after the break.
And you're welcome to Focus Africa right here on Breakfast Extra, is where we delve into the latest stories shaping the continent. And today we turn our attention to Mozambique, where the capital city, Maputo, awoke to scenes of destruction and unrest. Overnight, protests erupted as hundreds of opposition supporters took to the streets condemning the results of the October 9th election. The ruling party, Frelipo, secured victory once again, extending their 49-year hold on power. Yet opposition leader and his supporters are challenging the election outcome, claiming it was marred by corruption and irregularities.
Well, the European Union Observer Mission also highlighted discrepancies during the vote count, hinting at alleged favoritism towards Frelimo. With us to unpack the implications of these developments is Bonga Miras, IMD project manager and political scientist. Thank you so much for joining us here on Breakfast Extra. Great. Let's start off first.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. You do have a winner that has emerged at the just concluded election. Talk about the president-elect. And we've seen what that has led to. The youths are on the streets, still protesting and saying they do not want him as a leader. Let me start off by asking, can you give us an update on the current situation now as we speak in Mozambique? Are protests still on? Will it continue? And secondly, have the unknown killers of the other political parties been found or named? Any update at all would do justice to this conversation as we start.
Well, thank you so much. Well, at the moment, the manifestation are still on the go. However, people are still reluctant to come to the streets and to have their, for the work and even to have some walking around, because people are afraid of walking around. And tomorrow, I mean, the leader of Podemos, Venancio, the candidate leader of Podemos, who is Venancio Mondlane, has yesterday said that he was going to have some new or instructions so that people can still have their own manifestations in the streets, on the roads, elsewhere. So the economy of Mozambique is still reluctant. Even yesterday, when Frelimo came out to celebrate his victory, as allegedly won this process, there have been, we have witnessed some demonstrations in the northern country of Mozambique, in the province of Niassa, in the district of Mecanyelas, where people have been shot, and we have now count 5 people that are killed by the police force because of these manifestations. So the whole country is in this reluctance. People are not having their own activities normally because of this manifestation. And we also have to know that this will last for 25 days. Now we have now witnessed the 3rd day of manifestation. So we are still waiting for the 22 days of this manifestation, because Venancio Mondlane is now doing this as the way of revenge. It's a kind of revenge of his lawyer that has been murdered by bullets. So now he's going to have 25 days. I mean, was murdered by 25 bullets, I was going to say. So now he's going to have his manifestation for 25 days in order to make his own manifestation as well. So the context now is relatively not normal in Mozambique.
Right. I have to ask, right, Bonga, in terms of this party, the ruling party, right, with them winning the election, what does it mean for Mozambique's democracy? 49 years hold of power. What does it mean? And also, very quickly, the European Union's observers mission have flagged irregularities with the election, saying that it showed favoritism towards the ruling party. Now, how might this also impact the legitimacy of the election and the ruling party still being in power 49 years on?
I hope I might have heard you well. There's a problem of internet. So the impact is going to be very negative in Mozambique. We have to know that Mozambique is going to, this year, is going to celebrate its 30 years of electoral democracy, with Frelimo ruling the power for 49 years. After the independence in 1975. So Frelimo has all sought to rule the country, coming with the forms of the narrative of the liberating movement, and only to give its own legitimacy to run the destiny of the country. So now things have changed. Now we have, there is an emergence of the new kind of the electorate, the citizens that now they demand for the change, that now demand for the transparency of the election. So these kind of situation have turned Mozambique into an authoritarian regime, in the sense that the elections has always been manipulated. There is this perception. There is a perception as well as of the partisanship of the main political institutions. We are talking about the Constitutional Court, that is one that also gives the last verdict in election.
All right, let's look at
Electoral Commission elections. I beg your pardon?
All right. Are you done with your thoughts, or you still want to go ahead? Okay. We seem to have a bit of a network connectivity issues there. But we'll try as much as possible to get along with this conversation. Hopefully, when our guest surely joins us back as a political scientist. And, well, just in case you're back, I'd like you to quickly touch base with the next question I'm about to ask. And the question simply is this. Let's look at the winner, the president-elect, of course, from Frelimo. After 49 years in power, talking about David Chapo. He barely has any experience in politics, just a little experience there. We could also turn to call him our colleague, because he was also a broadcaster by the side, talking about the current administration in which he has actually won the ticket to be a president-elect, or the next president that's incoming there in Mozambique. As a political scientist, do you see any chance, by any chance, if he would be able to turn around the economic instability there in Mozambique? Because that seems to be one of his major goals, like he mentioned during the pre-campaign elections, that he wants to turn around the economy. Do you foresee any chance that he would be able to do this?
Well, unfortunately, I have some problems of internet. But are you asking if
do you see David? Do you think David,
or the one who has been allegedly elected, Daniel Chapo, is going to turn or to become the economy well functioning?
Okay, I'm talking about Chapo himself. Do you think, as a political scientist, because he, according to the entire statements even made from the electorate, he lacks political knowledge and understanding and will. Do you think he is able to turn around the economic challenges of Mozambique should he sit as president?
Well, Mozambique now is facing a big problem of corruption, unemployment, and deficient healthcare and education system. So these are the problems that related to the higher levels of corruption. We will see the difficulties that this process they can make our economy to become better. So now we have now some reports that shows that Mozambique economy will relatively be decreasing for the next legislature. So that's the problem that we are facing now. So the economy in this context that we are facing of elections not well legitimized by all the social classes and the communities, we won't see it growing as it was supposed to.
Right. Well, I mean, Bongo, I want to say thank you so much. We have to let you go, and hopefully we will definitely keep tabs with Mozambique and see how this protest and also post-election and now with the results announced would look like. Well, once again, many thanks. Bonga Maris, he is a political scientist and also project manager, and he joined us today to give us a bit of insight into Mozambique post the election period and just the turbulency that the country is facing at the moment. Once again, many thanks.
Thank you so much.
And that's how we wrap up the show. So much for election transparency and Africa. Well, Ghana is around the corner in December. Excited for that?
Africa is going through tough times. It seems like it's a roller coaster of an identifiable problem, which we see happen somewhere in the south. It's coming to the east. The West seems to be bereft of certain issues, but even once in a while, you do see that. I mean, we've seen that occur somewhere in Togo here. Yeah. We've seen it happen not too far. So these issues are starting to look very, very worrisome. But then again, if you've seen the footage coming out of Mozambique, it's a cause to worry, especially when the police actually, the footage I saw, the police actually shot at the opposition party while they were having interviews on the streets. They didn't shoot rubber bullets or
live ammunition.
25 bullets
It is
hitting the
wild.
car.
It is wild. Now, again, this brings us to the very end of the show. I must say, Joe, thank you so much for phoning. This is his first time in working at News Central that's ever been here on a Sunday morning.
Oh, yeah.
Mazino, you owe him. Let's not bring something for him. Anyway, but Joe, once again, many thanks. And this is how we close the curtains here on Breakfast Extra. Join us on Saturday morning. But then Mazino will be back 8 a.m. sharp on Saturday.
Absolutely.
My name is Judith TV, and here's Joe Hansen. And here's our takeout. For us, it's bye for now.